Very quietly and without much notice or fanfare from corporate media, Bernie Sanders has taken a pretty decisive position in second place of the 2020 Democratic primary, ahead of Elizabeth Warren, and is actually even statistically tied for first place with Joe Biden in admittedly just one recent poll. If you look at the last 8 polls as of a few hours ago, Bernie Sanders is either statistically tied for second place with Elizabeth Warren in 2 of the polls, 14-13 and 16-17, or in second place behind Joe Biden. Bernie polling as high as 25 in the latest Emerson poll, as low as 14 in the latest USA Today poll. But in that USA Today poll, where Bernie polls 14, Elizabeth Warren polls 13. This has not been covered very much, or even really almost at all by corporate media. I took a look at Google News and saw that there's an article from Vox saying most voters haven't picked anybody yet. I saw an article from Newsweek, which accurately says Joe and Bernie are pulling away. There's one good piece in the Boston Globe saying Bernie is back and has a shot at this thing. Now, of course, we don't know what will happen, but Bernie Sanders is suddenly in a very strong position in national polling with all of the normal caveats. The caveat, of course, is much like with national polling related to Donald Trump, we need to understand that this is an electoral college race in the end. The primary also is made up of delegates that are garnered looking at each individual state's primary or caucus. So let's look at some of those first primary states. And, you know, when you do that, it's also not looking bad for Bernie in those first primary states. Bernie is in a statistical tie for first place in Iowa, which is the first state to vote. Bernie is in third place in New Hampshire behind Biden and Buttigieg. Bernie's tied with Elizabeth Warren for second place in Nevada. And Bernie is tied with Elizabeth Warren for second place in South Carolina, which will be the fourth state to vote. So I get a lot of emails that are, this black and white thinking of it's either all this or all that. Bernie's going to win all of these. Bernie's going to win none of these. This could go any number of ways, and it's going to be based on the momentum set by the early states. So if you're with Bernie, start to focus on Iowa and New Hampshire and subsequently Nevada and South Carolina. If you are with whoever, increasingly that is the strategy. We had debate number 6 last night. We have debate number 7 on January 14th. And then voting starts on February 3 with the Iowa caucuses. 8 days later, it will be the New Hampshire primary on February 11th. So can Bernie Sanders win? That's one question that's often discussed. The answer is yes, he can win. What are you getting at when you ask that question? Are you alluding to DNC opposition to Bernie? Are you alluding to voters taking to the ideology espoused by Bernie Sanders? Depending on what you're asking, there's a different political analysis to be made. Will Bernie win? Anybody claiming that definitively is operating in mere speculation. So I get a lot of Andrew Yang supporters who will get in touch and say, David, Yang will win the nomination and is the only person who can defeat Donald Trump. Neither one of those claims is based in fact. I get people who say, David, Tulsi Gabbard is being railroaded, but she would have won, obviously, if it weren't for the smears against her. And she is the only one who can defeat Donald Trump. We went through some of these claims before. These are all mere speculation. What we can say about Bernie Sanders is that he is in this thing. He is in this thing even within the first 4 primary states that will be sort of like the momentum setters. And at least in hypothetical polling with Donald Trump, Bernie does well. He does better than many candidates, and he does worse than Joe Biden, and in some polls, worse than Elizabeth Warren. Nationally, although I'm trying to be as full as possible here and thorough, in some key states, Bernie Sanders does better than Elizabeth Warren in a hypothetical matchup against Donald Trump. So go and work for it because it's going to take work. This is going to be, if you were to say, will we know by March 1st who the nominee is going to be and whether it's going to be Bernie Sanders? I don't know that we will know by March 1st, but I think that by March 15th, we will know. I'm going from memory. I believe very early in March, maybe the 3rd or something like that, there are a bunch of primaries, including, I think, here in Massachusetts. Once those happen, we're going to have a very good sense of who is in this thing, who is not in this thing, and who should be dropping out because they have not garnered maybe even any delegates in any of the first bunch of primaries. So we will certainly know by then. Last thing on this, the role of impeachment in all of this. There's this idea that once the impeachment trial starts in the Senate, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are going to be pulled out of their campaigns and in the Senate for the trial, and this will objectively hurt them, and it will boost Biden and or Buttigieg, the more establishment candidates. I don't know that that is actually going to happen. You can speculate over whether that's the goal of impeachment. I think it's not. I think that Donald Trump is getting impeached because Donald Trump deserves to get impeached, and there's going to be a trial. I don't believe that the full slate of Democratic challengers of Democratic voters, Democratic reps who voted for impeachment in the House of Representatives are saying, here's an idea. I'm going to vote to impeach Trump to get Bernie and Warren off the trail so that Biden becomes the nominee. I don't think that that's the case, but it's speculative. The more important part is, would it actually work? And I think that in a way, you could be right that not being on the campaign trail could hurt Bernie or Warren. But remember, most of what is going to be going on by the time the Senate trial starts is going to be via TV ads and campaigning that doesn't require them to physically be where the voters are. And furthermore, there's a way in which being prominently participating in the Senate trial of Donald Trump's impeachment could actually help Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders that Joe Biden won't have the benefit of, that Pete Buttigieg will not have the benefit of. So I would not jump to that right away. I don't think that there is actually evidence of the motive. And more importantly, I think if it is the strategy that some are pursuing to get Bernie and Warren off of the campaign trail, I think it is going to fail and it is going to not work at all and could even backfire. We are going to talk about many things coming up later today, including, I never talked about this, but I do want to talk about it. Barron Trump and Greta Thunberg. Why is it that Republicans went nuts when one was mentioned, but said nothing about Donald Trump bullying the other online? I want to talk about that a little bit later. We will get back to this conversation of martial law and contesting the election results. I want to get to that later in the show. Also, a really weird question related to my recent appendectomy that I had, which I'm going to humor the viewers with and actually answer later today. We will also take your phone calls upcoming. Make sure you are following me at Pakman on Twitter. Follow the David Pakman Show at David Pakman Show. And we've got a tremendous Friday show for you. I will remind you, just so people don't forget, we have the Monday show, and then we're on break until almost the end of the year. We're taking a week off next week. Don't get scared. The show is not going off the air. We're just taking a little vacation. I am thrilled to tell you that today's episode is sponsored in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist is a really unique service for your phone, tablet, and web browser, and it is incredibly useful for people like me who love books and learning but are busy. Blinkist takes the best and most popular nonfiction books and condenses them into 15-minute audiobooks. I'm sure that if you're like me, you have a very long list of books that you've been meaning to read. You only have so many hours in the day, and that's why Blinkist is so amazing. They take the most important information, the themes, the insights from each book, and they distill it into a 15-minute audiobook that you can listen to in one sitting. I've listened to a ton of books on Blinkist. Our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I put a link in the description. I have listened to Blinkist books about economics, about political science, about history, about science, so many interesting things. And after the free trial, if you like it, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for about $5 a month. Go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. That's BLINKIST.com/PAKMAN.